This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. Welcome to the Kollel Agra de Pirka here in Kew Garden Hills, New York. Parshas Vayeira. So David HaMelech, in a moment where he recognizes the salvation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, David HaMelech says the following. He says, Kois Yeshuais Esa Uv'Shem Hashem Ekra. He uses the word Esa. Or in a moment of distress, David HaMelech looks up to the Shemayim, he's looking for his salvation, he says, Esa inai el ha'orim, me'ayin yava yesvi. The word Esa says the holy Megala Amukos from Nasanata Shapira. It says on his kever, he's buried in Krakow, he had Giloy Eliyahu, Panim al Panim. So this, I happen to be in Krakow, Yud Gimel Av. And we went to the cemetery, we were the first ones there, and it was his yard site, Yud Gimel Av. Says Megala Mukos, Esa. What does David HaMelech mean when he says Esa? Esa is Roshei Tevois, Aye, Sarah, Ishtecha. Obviously, what else? Esa is Roshei Tevois, Aye, Sarah, Ishtecha. And the question is, what's the meaning of that? What does Esa, what does Kois Yeshua's Esa have to do with Aye, Sarah, Ishtecha? What does Esa Einai El Haharim have to do with Aye, Sarah, Ishtecha? Rabbi, let us introduce today's Shiur with the following incredible comments of the Chidushei Harim. Chidushei Harim is bothered by the kasha that many of the Achronim are bothered by, and that is, we know 3 malachim came to Abraham. 1, to tell Abraham he's going to have a child. 1, to heal Abraham. And 1, to destroy Sodom. It would seem like one of these malachim took a wrong turn. One of these malachim are lost. I understand why the malach who came to Abraham to tell him he's going to have a child needed to come to Abraham. I understand why the malach that came to heal Abraham needed to come to Abraham. But the malach who came to destroy Sodom, obviously his GPS wasn't working. Because otherwise, what in the world is he doing in Abraham's house? You know, he's about to destroy the wrong place. What's he doing in Abraham's house? Why did he go to Abraham's house? What's he doing there? He should go to... What? So Mazuman is 3. So Abraham and 2 malachim. What? He watched them eat. What? So what's this malach doing in Abraham's house? Well, it says the Chidushei Harim, an amazing idea. And that is why, also you could say, the malach that went to rescue Lot, what's he doing in Abraham's house? What are they doing there? So the Chidushei Harim says like this. The whole concept of destroying Sodom and rescuing Lot, why would we want to rescue Lot? What do we have with Lot? Lot's such a good guy. Hashem didn't even communicate with Abraham so long as Lot was with him. Lot was a Russia already. Vayisa Lot mikedem. Lot moved on from God. Why are we rescuing Lot? So the Medrash says that it's not about Lot. It's not about Lot's children. It's about who's going to come out of Lot. Like the Medrash says, Shtei b'noisecha hanimtza'os, the 2 daughters that are found. This is a remez to David HaMelech, about which it says, Matzasi David Avdi. David HaMelech was literally found in Sodom. Right? It says, Matzasi David Avdi. I found my servant David. The Medrash says, Vehichan matza'osai. Where was he found? He was found in Sodom. He was, so to speak, hidden in Sodom. He was the descendant of Lot, descendant of the oldest daughter of Lot, who lived with Lot and had Maya, from which came Rus, from which came David. So David was hidden in Sodom. So the Malachim were going there, yes, to destroy Sodom, but the Malach who went to rescue Lot was only doing so to be able to save David. Okay, so now we see, off the bat, that there's more to the incident than meets the eye. It looks like Lot is being saved, when in fact it's really David HaMelech. But here's the problem. Why would we save David HaMelech? Is David HaMelech's lineage kosher? After all, we know that those who come from Mayav cannot marry into the main body of the Jewish people. It sounds like a very good taina. That was the taina of Doeg HaAdoimi. The answer is, the Torah says, Lo yavai amoni mayavi b'kal Hashem, and we darshan, amoni v'lay amonis, mayavi v'lay mayavis. The question is, why do we darshan it that way? We don't darshan mitzri v'loy mitzris. We don't darshan mamzer v'loy mamzeres. Why do we darshan amoini v'loy amoinis, mayav v'loy mayavis? Well, the Gemara says there's a reason. What's the reason why amoin and mayav are asur? Because the very important klal, and that is, if somebody has guests, so don't make the mistake. Oh, how you doing? Thank you for coming to my house. Sit down. And then you start telling them stories and baba maisas, and you chew the guy's ear off. The guy's not interested in what you have to say. Just give him a drink and give him something to eat. He doesn't want you to chew. Don't talk to him. Feed him. That's what Chazal say. That the reason why Amoin and Moav are asur is because they don't know how to treat guests. That when Klal Yisrael were passing through our land, they should have advanced us. Hayu lo lekadem al davar shelo kidmu eschem balechem uvamayim. They had the ma'an. They had the be'er. Still, you have to show them the token gesture of offering them something to eat when they come. So therefore, because they had that bad character trait, they can't marry into the main body of the Jewish people. Okay, so then women should also be asur. No, women are more kol kevuda b'asmelech panima. Women are more modest. It's not their innate nature to go out and be offering food to strangers and guests. Well, wait a second. Nobody said the women should be serving the men, but let the men Moavim serve the male Jews, and let the female Moavim serve the female Jews. No. Even for a woman to be seen in any type of public forum, even for chesed, is not appropriate. And therefore we don't have any tainus on Ammon and Moav for not coming out toward us, because it's not the nature of a woman to be out in the public. It's not? Well, let's determine now what in fact is the nature of a woman. So we'll say, okay, great idea. We'll go out into the world and we'll look in 2018. What's the nature of the woman? Oh yeah, I went out on the streets. I didn't see there are no noshim. All the noshim, they're indoors. They're all in the kitchen. They're all baking cream cakes. Yeah, so now we've established that the nature of a woman is to be modest, right? No women go to work, no women drive cars, no women are seen in public. So okay, now we understand why Ammon and Moav, why the women are mutter. The answer is, we don't look at what's going on in 2018. We look at what the innate nature of a woman is ideally. So who determines that? Who determines what the inherent nature of a woman is? The answer is, we're going to conduct an experiment, we're going to conduct an investigation, and we're going to take a look at the first Jewish woman and see what her nature was. So the Malach who came to rescue light says, Ribono shel olam, why in the world am I rescuing light? The only reason I'm rescuing light is to save David, but David shouldn't be mutter. So Hashem says, no, he should be mutter, because the nature of women is to be modest, and therefore since he comes from the women of Moav, David should be mutter. So the Malach says, who decided that the nature of a woman should be modest? So Hashem says, before you go to rescue light, go to Abraham's house, go to Sarah Imenu, ask Abraham, Aye, Sarah Ishtecha, and see what he says. If he says she's out at the mall, then you know the woman have a certain. If he says Hinei Ba'ayel, then it's the other thing. So when the Malach asks Abraham, says the Chidush Harim, Aye, Sarah Ishtecha, and Abraham responds, Hinei Ba'ayel, that established for all time the ideal mahus and nature of a woman, and because of that, now David HaMelech is Roi Lavoi Bekahal, and now the Malach could go and rescue light. The reason why the angel who needed to rescue light had to go to Abraham's house first is because he needed to establish and understand and determine what the nature of a woman is. And when the Malach said, Aye Sarah Ishtecha, and Abraham has said, Hinei Ba'ayel, that matter David HaMelech for all time, and now the Malach has a mission to rescue David. That's the Chidush Harim. Says Megala Mukais, this was the Kavana of David HaMelech. That whenever he was experiencing salvation, he realized what's the source of his salvation? Kais, Yeshuais, Esa. Esa stands for Aye, Sarah, Ishtecha. When David HaMelech was in a bind, he said, Esa, Einai Ela Orem. What's the Esa Einai? Aye, Sarah, Ishtecha. That's the Megala Mukais. Incredible. Magal Mukoi says the source of David's salvation came from the modesty of Sari Imenu. Now we understand, by the way, just as an aside, the plan of Bilam to get the Benois Moav to be Mezaneh was a very deep scheme. Because what Bilam was trying to demonstrate is that the nature of women is to be prutzim. If that's the case, David will be Asur, and you'll never have a Mashiach. So Bilam's plan was a very deep plan. Okay, that's for a different time. Marv Rabbi said that's the introduction to today's Shiur. In last week's Parsha, Avram Avinu, at, I guess, how old? 99 years old? He gets a prophecy. He gets the best news anyone ever got in their whole life. You could just imagine how many tears Abraham and Sarah shed to be able to have a child. And Hashem comes to Abraham, he says, Abraham, guess what? Vayeira, Hashem said, you're going to have a child, you're going to name him Yitzchak, Sarai is going to give birth to a child. V'kol hashomeya Yitzchak li. Can you imagine the joy that Abraham had when he heard that he's going to have a child? And Abraham responds in a very interesting way. You would have thought, Abraham hears he's going to have a child, he would have said, Ribbon Shalom, thank you so much, this is what I was hoping for, I can't believe that finally the day has come. But instead Abraham said, Ribbon Shalom, so much you're giving me, Halavai Yishmael should be a good kid. If only that, Halavai, even if I just had a Yishmael who lived before you. And the words he uses is, Vayomer Abraham el ha'alekim, Lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. If only Yishmael will live before you. What does that mean, Lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha? Says Rashi, yichya lefanecha, yichya b'yirasecha. Live in your fear. Which is also an interesting expression. Avram Avinu was mispalel, if only Yishmael would have Yiras Shamayim. Why of all things is Avraham davening that Yishmael should live b'yirasecha, in the fear of God? Why is that what he's focusing on at this time? And B'chlal, Hashem is telling Avraham, you're going to have a Yitzchak. Why is Avraham focusing on Yishmael? And the truth is, we can never say such a thing, and nobody could say such a thing. But Chazal revealed to us that we have tightness on Avraham Avinu for making this expression. We're not happy. Not only that, this is not just Chazal, but they read into the pasuk in Yeshaya. Look in the Navi Yeshaya, Perach Samach Gimel number 5. We say, Ki ata Avinu. We say, Rebbeinu Shem, you're our father. Ki Avraham lo yida'anu. Avraham doesn't even know who we are. Says the Zohar HaKadosh in Parshas Vayigash, Ki Avraham lo yida'anu. Even though Avraham upholds the whole world, he didn't make efforts on our behalf. He prayed for Yishmael. We have tightness on Avraham. Avraham, why didn't you daven for us the way you davened for Yishmael? The way you cried for Yishmael? If only Avraham, you don't know us. What happened? You're not our father. Why do you daven for Yishmael that way? And in fact, it's brought that the whole source of power of Yishmael, and you see how they're proliferating today, and you see how at B'Achros Hayomim, they're, Yadoi Bakol, they're taking over the world, taking over European continent, they're infiltrating every country in the world. You can't help but realize that this is the Kayach of, the Maharal writes, that the Kayach of Yishmael is from the Tefillah of Avraham Avinu, Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha. If only Avraham would have said, Lu Yitzchak Yichya Lefanecha. Comes Arizal, and Arizal is Megala to us, incredible concept. First he tells us that, an idea that's well known, that Adam HaRishon, when he sinned, so the three Avos were Adam reincarnate. The three Avos were the Gilgul of Adam HaRishon, and Chava was reincarnated as the Imahis. And each one of the Avos were Masake in one particular aspect of what Adam HaRishon did wrong. Avraham was Masake in the fact that Adam served Avodah Zarah. How was Avraham Masake in that? When Avraham was thrown into the fire, so he was, so to speak, like an Avodah Zarah. Meaning the concept is, we say va'ashereihem tisrafun ba'esh, you need to burn avodah zarah in fire, while Adam Arishain needed to be punished for avodah zarah, and he was punished through Avraham being thrown into the fire. That's what the Arizal says. But says the Ari, it's not that Avraham inherently deserved it. There was something in Avraham that because this was in Avraham, this spark was in Avraham, this spark needed to be purged, and that is Yishmael. Because of the nitzutz of Yishmael that was in Avraham, therefore Avraham was thrown into the fire of Or Kasdim. And as soon as Yishmael came out of Avraham, Yishmael went to his bad ways. And when Avraham saw that Yishmael is a Rasha and Chayev Misa, he said, Oy vay, Lu Yishmael, Yichya lefanech, if only Yishmael would return and do tshuva. And in fact, Yishmael did do tshuva, says Zari. However, there was a good spark in Yishmael. You ready for this? This is the basis of today's share. There was a good spark in Yishmael. Who is the good spark in Yishmael? His name was Yisra HaYishmaeli. Yisra HaYishmaeli. That's right. Nobody ever heard of him, huh? There was a good spark in Yishmael. His name was Yisra HaYishmaeli. And not only that, he married the daughter of a snake. So it's bad enough that we don't know who Yisra HaYishmaeli is. But now what a shidduch he got. You know? Look, he married the daughter of a snake. Okay, what does this mean? Who is Yisra HaYishmaeli? What does it mean he married the daughter of a snake? Now the Reb Chaim Vital in the Sefer Eitz Hadas Tov quotes this Arizal, and he adds one fascinating nekuda. And that is, if you look about 10 lines down, he says, when all the souls were mixed into Adam Arishain, as is known, ki kol haneshamos toivos v'rois, all the good and bad souls were mixed in Adam Arishain. Hu haya hasa'ar hamachdi la'adam, hu aviem lachdoi ba'avodah zarah. And then he says, V'achar kach nitzot satov shahaya b'Yishmael, haya Yisra Hashmaeli, shalakach bas nachash, lirmois, ki hu haya tchila ra'as hanachash, shehesis la'adam, la'avoid avodah zarah. If you want to know what persuaded and seduced Adam to do the Vayeira of eating from the Eitz Hadas, says Reb Chaim Vital, it was Yishmael. It was Yishmael. Okay, that's just for your added enjoyment. But, be it as it may, there is a concept that Avram Avinu had in him the Ra, some kind of Ra of Adam Arishain, which was Yishmael. That was purged. And Yishmael has a Nitzat HaToiv in him, and that Nitzat HaToiv was none other than Yisra HaYishmaeli. Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. Says the Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis. So now we have to get to the bottom of this. What does it mean that Yisra HaYishmaeli married Bas Nachash? What a shidduch. Say, who's the mechutin? Nachash. No, not what you think of him. What's his name? Right? Like, what kind of name is it? He's the daughter of a snake? She's the daughter of a snake? So the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos tells us, it's the Gemara in Bava Basra as well, the Gemara says 4 people died by the bite of the snake. Meaning there are 4 people in history that never sinned, and the only reason that they died is because that's the fate of mankind, that every person one day has to go. Who are the 4 people who never sinned? Binyamin, the son of Yaakov, Amram, the father of Moshe, Yishai, the father of David, Kilav, the son of David. And says the Gemara, all of these are a tradition except for Yishai. The fact that Yishai never sinned, that's a beferish pasuk. What's the pasuk? It's a pasuk in Shmuel. Take a look at number 10. V'yas Amasa, there was a guy named Amasa. Some Avshalom tachas Yoav alat Sava. Avshalom made Amasa in the place of Yoav to be a general. And who's Amasa? Benish. He's the son of a man. Yeah, it's a good thing. Amasa Benish. Amasa is the son of a man. Who's the man? Ushma Yisra HaYisraeli. Yisra the Yisraeli. Well, wait a second. Now Rizal said he's Yisra HaYishmaeli. What happened to the name over here? And who is Yisra HaYishmaeli? Asher Ba'el Avigail. He lived with Avigail. Now this is not Abigail, the wife of David. This is Abigail bas Tzuria. Yeah, Abigail bas Nachash. Abigail, the daughter of the snake. Achos Tzuria, the sister of Tzuria. Aim Yoav, the mother of Yoav. So listen to what's going on. There's a guy named Amasa. Amasa was a man, was the son of a man. Who was his father? Yisra. Yisra ha-Yisraeli. Who's Yisra? Yisra lived with Abigail. Who's Abigail? The daughter of a snake. Who is she? Which snake? The sister of Tzuria. That means Abigail was the sister of Tzuria. Now we know Tzuria was the daughter of Yishai, was David's sister. David had a sister called Tzuria. That means Tzuria was the daughter of Yishai. So if Tzuria was the daughter of Yishai, then Yisra, then Abigail was also the daughter of Yishai. You hear this? So Yishai had two daughters. One was Tzuria, and one was Abigail. And Yisra ha-Yisraeli married Yishai's daughter. Yisra ha-Yisraeli married Yishai's daughter. Who is Yishai's daughter? Abigail. Abigail's sister was Tzuria. Tzuria was the mother of Yoav. That means David and Yoav were what?
Uncle and nephew.
No, first cousins, right? Because Tzuria was the mother of Yoav, and David and Tzuria. Oh yeah, David was his uncle. David was his uncle.
Here we go with Mordechai.
David was his uncle. So, but let's come back to Yisra ha-Yisraeli. Yisra ha-Yisraeli lived with Abigail. Abigail was the sister of Tzuria, and their father was Yishai. So Yishai was the father-in-law of somebody by the name of Yisra ha-Yisraeli. So the Gemara asks one simple question: why are we calling Yishai a snake? The pasuk says, "El Abigail bas Nachash." Well, if Abigail was the sister of Tzuria, she was not the daughter of the Nachash; she was the daughter of Yishai. So the Gemara says, "V'chi bas Nachash havai, v'halei bas Yishai havai." D'chsev achi Yosem Tzuria of Abigail. Ella, you know why we're calling Yishai a snake? Because the only reason he died is because of the curse of the snake. But he really shouldn't have died because Yishai never sinned. So from this Gemara, the Gemara is giving Yishai a very interesting name. We're calling Yishai snake. And his son-in-law was Yisra ha-Yisraeli. But here's the problem. The Arizal called him Yisra ha-Yishmaeli. The truth is, it's not only a question on the Arizal, it's a question on the Pasuk in Divrei Hayamim. As you remember from when you learned Divrei Hayamim Aleph, everyone here learned Divrei Hayamim, at least in utero, and hopefully since then also. In Divrei Hayamim it says, "Va'avigail yolda es Amasa, va'avi Amasa, Yeser ha-Yishmaeli." So we have a stira. One pasuk calls him Yeser ha-Yisraeli, and one pasuk calls him Yeser ha-Yishmaeli. And one thing I want to tell you is, never confuse a Yisraeli and a Yishmaeli. It's not good. Bad things happen when you confuse Yishmaeli and Yisraeli. So what happened with this individual? Rashi says, very simple. He wasn't a Yishmaeli. He came from the land of Yishmael. And we call him Yisraeli. The Radak says, so you don't make a mistake and think he's a Yishmaeli. But says the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas, that might be the simple pshat, the pasha pshat. But based on the Arizal, who was Yeser ha-Yishmaeli? He was the Nitzutz HaToiv of Yishmael. So he was a Yid, he was a Yisraeli. However, we call him Yeser ha-Yishmaeli to be Meramez, that he was a Nitzutz of Yishmael. I'll tell you another pshat in this. The Malbim Divrei Hayamim says something which is somewhat even troubling, because we once learned the tradition of the Kli Yakar and the Maral, and that is, we do not have righteous converts from Yishmael. They're allowed to convert, but throughout history, the Mefarshim say we don't really have successful converts from Yishmael. all the righteous converts have come from Esav. Shmaya Naftalion, Onkelos, Reb Meir, Nero Kezar. There are many righteous converts that have come from Esav. How many that you know about that have come from Yishmael? Yeah, but we don't know of too many prominent. Yeah, we don't know of too many. Gedolei Rishonim, Achroinim, Goinim, Tanoim, Amoram that come from Yishmael. Rosh Yeshivas today.
Can be they came later on after the Amorim and Tanoim.
Yeah, so look in the Malbim. The Malbim says that it could be this individual was a Ger Yishmaeli, and after he was Megayer, they changed his name from Yeser to Yisra, and they called him Yisraeli. But if you look in the Yalkut Shimoni says a very interesting thing, that in fact, he was a Yishmaeli, and he entered the Beis Medrash, and he saw Yishai learning, and Yishai was darshaning the pasuk Penu Elai V'Yishai Kalav Se'aretz Ki Ani Kel V'Einoid, and he was Megayer. Yishai said, "Oh, you're Megayer? Here's my daughter. Take my daughter Avigail." Now that's an incredible thing, because you wouldn't think Yishai would have had a hard time finding a shidduch for his daughter. I mean, on Yishai's daughter's shidduch resume, you know what it said? It said, "My brother is the king of Israel. My father is one of the 4 people never sinned." You wouldn't have thought that Yishai would have had to get a ger to marry off his daughter, but that's what happened. Okay? It's a kasha and a maisa, as they say. So we have this Yeser HaYishmaeli, who is the Nitzatz HaToiv of Yishmael. He may have even been a convert from Yishmael. Okay. Marv Rabbi, fasten your seatbelts. We're about to be nichnas into a very... what? How is it possible that he never sinned? No, the Gemara says that Yishai is called a Nachash to indicate that the only reason that he died is because of the curse of the Nachash, but not because he committed any Chatam. Okay, Marv Rabbi, probably the most misunderstood, hijacked, abused, and misused concept in Judaism. It's a concept that on the one hand we're all hoping for, we're all yearning for, and on the other hand it's a concept that has brought probably more Jewish tragedy than any other Yesod, is the concept of Mashiach. It's the most abused and misused concept. And the thing is, it's still one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim. Right? We believe on Imamin, B'Emunah Shalema, B'Vias HaMashiach. But not only that, we have a tradition, not only is there one Mashiach, we have a tradition that there are 2 Mashiachs. There's a concept of Mashiach ben David, and there's a concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. The Gemara mentions it, the Gemara Masechta Sukkah, Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis. The pasuk says, number 15, Vayareni Hashem arba charashim. Hashem showed me the 4 carpenters. Says the Gemara, Man ninhu arba charashim. Who are the 4 carpenters? Amar Rav Chana bar Bizna, Amar Reb Shimon Chasida, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, Ve'eliyahu, V'Koyin Tzedek. Then our history, there are 4 carpenters. Okay? A Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef. Now, why does Mashiach need to be a carpenter? They're going to have to build a lot of storm shranks in the Beis HaMikdash. They're going to have to build the Beis HaMikdash, so they have to be a carpenter. Why do we need 2 Mashiachs? I mean, first let's start with one. What's the concept of 2 Mashiachs? What's the role of 2 Mashiachs? Isn't one Mashiach will do? How many Mashiachs do you need already? And yet we have this tradition, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef. Comes the Medrash Tanchuma, and the Medrash Tanchuma labels the 2 Mashiachs with the following names. It says the Medrash Tanchuma and Bereshis Siman Aleph, Meshalchei Regel Hashar, descending forth of the ox, Zeh Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef is called an ox. Shenimshal Lashar. V'hachamor, Zeh Mashiach ben David, Shenemar Ani v'roichev al chamar. Amazing. Mashiach ben Yosef is called the Shar. Mashiach ben David is called the Chamar. Wow, what beautiful names to call Mashiach. Shar and Chamar. What's the meaning of that? Marv Rabbi, now let's bring out a very important revelation. It's something that we've discussed before. We know that a fundamental concept in Judaism is that there are 4 golosim, there are 4 exiles. What are the 4 exiles? Traditionally, it's the first one was Bavel, followed by Madai and Parshas and Madai, followed by Yavan, followed by Edom. Right? The remez is, what's the remez? It says, Eile Masei B'nei Yisrael. These are the traverses of B'nei Yisrael. Rashi Tevos, Eile, Aleph, Edom, Masei, Madai, Beis, Bavel, Yisrael, Yud, Yavan. These are the 4 travels of the B'nei Yisrael. What's the trup on those words? Eile, Eile, Azla Geiresh, Munach Revi. Azla Geiresh, we were chased out, we were thrown out. Munach, we were placed, Ravi, in the 4 golosim. Again, Bavel, Madai, Yavan, and Edom. And where are we today? We're in Galos Edom. And nevertheless, one of the fundamental questions on the concept that there are 4 golosim is that there seems to be a Malchus and a Galos, which has been omitted by most of the Midrashim, and that is what has happened to Galos Yishmael. Certainly, you look around the world today, and you see that Yishmael is a very prominent force. It's a force to reckon with. And do we feel like we're in Galus Edom? Lav Davka, do we feel it? But certainly the wrath of Yishmael we do feel in the world. So why hasn't Yishmael been counted as one of the Galusim? And the Maharal has given a number of answers to this question. The Maharal says maybe Yishmael is included in Persia. The Maharal says that the definition of a malchus is a sovereignty that takes away the power of Klal Yisrael. But Yishmael never took away our power. The power of Yishmael comes from its own independent source, which is the tefillah of Avraham Avinu. But the Arizal himself says that we do count Yishmael. That bi'achris hayamim, as opposed to other golosim, there will be a dual golos ba'achris hayamim. That yes, there was Bavel, and there was Paras, and there was Yavan, and bi'achris hayamim, there's a dual golos. There's Golos Edom, and there's Golos Yishmael. There's the Golos of what we call the Western world, call it the Rome, call it America, or there's Golos Yishmael. In fact, Arizal says that when Daniel had his vision, and he saw the monster, he saw the head was gold, the golden head was Bavel, and he saw the arms were Paras and Madai. The body was Yavan, who glorified the body. And the 2 long galusim, the 2 long legs, were Edom and Yishmael, says Arizal number 18 in Likutei Torah. So, we know we have 2 galusim, according to the Arizal, we have 2 galusim at the end of days. Galos Edom and Galos Yishmael. By the way, if you look in the Pirkei Rabbi Elazar, in Parak Chav Ches, when the Pirkei Rabbi Elazar, we know that the first to see the 4 golosim, Avraham Avinu saw the 4 golosim in the Bris Bein HaBesarim, where the pasuk says, "V'hinei ema chashecha gedoyla noifeles alav." Says the Pirkei Rabbi Elazar, ema is the 4th malchus, which is Edom, and chashecha is Yavan, gedoyla is Paras, noifeles is Babel, but alav elu b'nei Yishmael shaleim ben David yitzmach. And that's a very telling line in the Medrash. The Medrash says Mashiach will come from which Galus? Galus Yishmael. The Medrash doesn't say Galus Edom. Okay. So coming back to our question, so we have these 2 main Galusim. The truth is, how many Umais HaOlam are there? 70 Umais HaOlam. But of the 70 Umais HaOlam, there are 2 heads. Who are the 2 heads of the 70 Umais HaOlam? Esav and Yishmael. The Vilna Gaon, in the beginning of Shir HaShirim, tells us that whenever you see the number 70, the number 70 always has 2 heads. For example, there's 70 Dayanim in the court, but there's a Nasi and an Av Bezdin. There's 70 Nefashos of Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov and Yosef. There's 70 names of Hashem, plus Ani V'Hai. Those are the 2 heads. And there's 70 nations of the world, Esav, Yishmael. Says the Megala Amukais, you have 35 on the right side, Yishmael. Yishmael makes it number 36. You have 35 on the left side, Esav makes it 36. You know why you have Lamed Vav Tzadikim in Eretz Yisrael and Lamed Vav Tzadikim in Chutz Haaretz? Keneged Esav v'Yishmael. It's even brought down in the Svarim. Anybody know how many words in Vayechulu? 35. How many words in the Kiddush? 35. Says Tikunei Zayar, add 2. Savrim Aranan. Shabbos is Keneged Esav Yishmael. Yishmael is on Friday. Esav is on Sunday. Right? And Shabbos is in middle of them to be Mavatel, the 2 Umais Ha'olam. Through Kiddush, we're Mavatel, the Shivim Umais, plus the 2 words Savrim Aranan. Fine. Comes the Vilna Gaon, and the Vilna Gaon opens up the heavens. This is Oyoim V'Noira. I've said this many, many times. I don't know if I ever mentioned it here in this location. This is a comment of the Gra to Safra D'Tzniusa, a Kabbalistic work. And these are one of the paragraphs that are somewhat B'derech Nigla. The Gra says, Dvarim Ayumim. We know there are 2 people in history, Cain and Hevel. Of these 2 Chevra, Cain and Hevel, who was better? Hevel was better. Hevel was a better guy. I mean, Cain killed Hevel. Which one of them violated Ritzicha? Cain. Which one of them violated Arayos? Cain. Cain wanted to live with Hevel's twin sister. So he was a Roitzeach, and he was over Gilei Arayos. Cain became Esav. Hevel became Yishmael, says the Gra. That's why Yishmael does tshuva, because he comes from Hevel. Esav comes from Cain, he doesn't do tshuva. That's why Esav is a Roitzeach, and Esav is over Gilei Arayos. Vayava Esav and Asad v'hu Ayev. And the same way, the Pekudei Rav Lezer says, what's the reason for shatnez? Does anybody know why you're not allowed to have shatnez? Cain brought which carbon? Priho Adama, linen. Priho Adama, yeah. Hevel brought Mibachayra Sinai wool. And the say you're not allowed to mix Cain and Hevel together. Therefore, you're not allowed to have shatnez, because shatnez is an admixture of Cain and Hevel. There's room for bad in this world. There's room for Ra in this world. There's room for Cain in this world, but you can't let it mix with Hevel. The good has to be pure. You can't have shatnez. Okay. Esav is Cain. Yishmael is Hevel. Esav is on the left side. Yishmael is on the right side. Now listen to this. Esav is called a par, a shar, parim abirim. Esav is called a bull. And what's Yishmael called? Yishmael, what does Avram Avinu say about Yishmael? Shavu lachem payim achamor. We know Yishmael's mother came from which country? Egypt. Who was Hagar? The daughter of Parai. What do we say about Mitzrayim? Asar basar chamoirim basaram. So, what is Yishmael? A chamar. Yishmael is a chamar, and Esav is a shar. Oh, now I know why you can't plow with an ox and a donkey together. Now I know why loy sachar shar v'chamara yachdav. Because you're going to mix Esav and Yishmael together. If Esav and Yishmael would ever mix together, these are the frightening words of the Vilna Gaon. If Esav and Yishmael ever come together, they will destroy the world. That's why Esav went to be Meshadich with Machlas Bas Yishmael. And the Gra writes, Hashem had to be Mesares them, so as they should not go destroy the world. But if Esav and Yishmael would ever come together, they will destroy the world. That's why my grandfather writes in his memoirs that when he was in Auschwitz, he saw Eichmann, and Eichmann invited a special guest into Auschwitz to join him to watch the Jews being punished, the Mufti from Jerusalem. My grandfather remembers Eichmann and the Mufti were sitting arm in arm, and they would beat Yidden in a way that they should never be able to procreate, and they were both laughing. You want to know what happens when Esav and Yishmael come together? Auschwitz happens. The union of Esav and Yishmael destroys the world. Says the Gra, Esav is the shar, Yishmael is the chamar. The chiddush of the Goin, Oyam V'Noira, is that's why we need 2 Mashiachs. Mashiach ben Yosef is the Mashiach of the Char Shoiroi, Shar Keneged the Shar. Mashiach ben Yosef will take us out of Galus Edom. Mashiach ben David, which is Ani V'Roichev al Chamar, will take us out of Galus Yishmael, the Galus of the Chamar. It's Shar Keneged Shar, Chamar Keneged Chamar. Mashiach ben Yosef out of Galus Edom, Mashiach ben David out of Galus Yishmael. Okay. In the Sefer Kava Yashar, he says an incredible remez, an incredible gematria. What's the gematria of Edom? Very good, 51. Wow, how do you know that? And what's the gematria of Yishmael? 451.
Yishmael.
Edom is 51. Yishmael is 451, 502. How many years did Avraham live? 175. How many years did Yitzchak live? 180. How many years did Yaakov live? 502. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, 175, 180, 147, 502. Edom v'Yishmael, 502. Edom and Yishmael, Keneged Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. 502 is Keneged Basar. Basar. You know what Edom and Yishmael are? Basar, Basada, Treifa, Lo Yisaychelu. They are the klipa of the Shar and the Chamar. Now, when you add Shar and Chamar together, you get Tsefa, which is 240. You get Amalek, which is 240. You get Kel Acher, which is 240. You get Ruach Hashem, which is 240. Okay, there's more to it. It says the Kavayasha, why in Europe, especially Edom, Golas Edom, whether it's Tachvetat, whether it's the Holocaust, they're always into burning Sifrei Torah, because they take the Sefer Torah, which is written on the Basar, which is 502, not on the Duchsustus, on the side of the here, and it's written B'mei Afatz. Afatz is also 240, which is Keneged Amalek, and the Oisios are Poireach, and somehow, as soon as they burn the Sifrei Torah, they seem to fizzle out. Ayin Sham in the Kavayashar, who explains the phenomenon of the burning of Sifrei Torah throughout history. Comes Yaakov Avinu, as Yaakov Avinu is approaching Esav. He says to Esav, Esav, you're not going to be able to stop me. You know why? Vayehi li shar v'chamar. You'll never stop me. I have oxen and donkeys. You know, Esav's coming with 400 men about to, with nuclear tanks. And Yaakov says, don't mess with me. I have donkeys. Yeah. Esav, what's Yaakov Avinu telling Esav? What Yaakov is telling Esav, says Rav Tzadok HaKohen, is that even if you go ahead and you mix with Yishmael, and you're going to form this union of the Shar and the Chamar, I've got the Shar already. Who's the Shar? Yosef is the Shar. He'll counteract you. I have Yehuda. From Yehuda comes David. The Chamar. I have the antidote to any force that you could come up and attack me with. Mar Rabbi say, it's very interesting. The Zohar HaKadosh says that of all the Golosim, between Golos Esav and Golos Yishmael, if we were to ask which Golos is more difficult for the Jewish people, Golos Esav or Golos Yishmael, most people will say it depends when, depends who you ask, depends if you're Ashkenazi or Sephardi, it depends which country you come from. They both have done a very good job vying for that role. But the Zohar HaKadosh says, there is no more despicable nation in the world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, than Mitzrayim. And he says it in the context of Golos Yishmael. And the Zohar says in number 26, Ein lecha Golos kasha liYisrael kamei Golos Yishmael. There is no more difficult Golos for Klal Yisrael than Golos Yishmael. The Zohar even says that Bnei Yishmael in the end of days are going to gather all the nations in the world onto Yerushalayim. So, Hashem did us a very big favor. Can you imagine if all the nations of the world would come against Yerushalayim? So Hashem said, don't worry about it. All you nations, you stay home. The UN will represent you, and they will cast your vote against Yerushalayim while, this way we don't... Hashem made a a joke of an organization called the UN for our benefit, so that we don't actually have to face all the nations of the world, but they all come together ba'achdus gamor against Yerushalayim. That's what it means. In the end of days, Yishmael will bring all the nations of the world against Yerushalayim. That's what the Zohar Kadosh says. Okay. Number 28. There's a guy, Goliath. Remember Goliath? So there's this little boy. He takes a slingshot. He pulls it back. Bam! He hits Goliath, between the eyes. The big jolly giant knocks over. Shaul says, "Who is this kid?" So the pasuk says, Avner says, "What do you mean? You don't know who he is?" Again, Avner is David's nephew, right? So Yoav is David's nephew. So, excuse me. Avner says to Shaul, "You don't know who this kid is? You don't know who this is? You know who David is. He's the guy you put on your garments." No. So Shaul says, "My shaila is like this: is he from Peretz or is he from Zarach? If he's from Peretz, this kid's going to be king one day, because a king is Peretz Geder. If he's from Zarach, he's just a star." So Doeg rears his head and he says, "You want to know whether he's from Paratz or Zarach? Why don't you ask a better kasha? Is he Roi Lavai L'Kahal? Because the pasuk says, Lo Yavai Amani Umayavi B'Kal Hashem, and he comes from Ras HaMoyaviyah." So Avner said, "What are you talking about? Amani V'lai Amoinis, Mayavi V'lai Mayavis." So they said back, Avner said back, "What do you mean? We don't make such a drasha." Doeg says back, "What about mamzer? We don't say v'loi mamzeres. What about mitzri? We don't say v'loi mitzris." So Avner says, "What do you mean?" And the reason why they're usher is because of al dvar shaloi kidmu, and only men go out, women don't go out. So Doeg says the women should go out to the women. Nobody knew what to say. So they're about to, basically disqualify David. Says the Gemara, second arrow line. Miyad va'amasa ben Ish. There's a guy Amasa, and his name, he's the son of a person of Shema Yisra HaYisraeli Asher Ba'al Avigail Bas Nachash Uchsiv Yeser HaYishmaeli. Is he a Yisraeli or Yishmaeli? Amar Rava. By the way, why do you think Rava is the one who said it? Because who does Rava come from? Remember we learned? Rava's from the Es Rechushai ben Achi. Rashi Tevis Rava was in light. So Rava says, this guy Yeser, he's not a Yishmaeli. Chagar charboy ki Yishmael. He girded his sword like Yishmael. And he says, anyone who doesn't know this halacha, I'm going to kill you. Kach mi koblani mi vezdin shel Shmuel, amoni v'lei amonis v'lei mayavis. So there's a guy who we never heard of. His name is Yeser, and he's called Yishmaeli. And the reason we're calling him Yishmaeli is because he girded his sword like a Yishmaeli. And he said, anybody who doesn't accept this halacha, I will immediately kill you. It's halacha l'Moshe Misinai, the females from Mayav are mutter. And the Ben Yehoyada wants to know, he girded his sword like a Yishmaeli. The Yishmaelim don't use swords. Esav's weapon is a sword, not Yishmael. Yishmael has another, Yishmael is a Roive Kashas. What do you mean he girded a sword like a Yishmaeli? Yishmaelim don't use swords. It's who was given the bracha al charbecha sichya. Who said in Parshas Chukas, Pen b'cherev eitzei l'krosecha? Edom, Esav. By the way, we have two forces of evil, the Samach Mem Aleph Lamed, which is Esav, and the Nachash. The Nachash is Yishmael, like the Reb Chaim Vital says. The one who got Adam to eat from the Eitz Hadas was Yishmael. He's the Nachash. He's on the right side. Esav's on the left side. So why are we saying he girded a sword like a Yishmaeli? The answer is because they were Moitzilaz on Yishai, who died by the curse of the Nachash. So Yishai the Nachash L'Toiv is Keneged Yishmael the Nachash L'Ra. So if you're going to mess with the Nachash, you're going to mess with Yishai. He girded his sword like Yishmael, who's Mamuna over the Nachash. And then says Ben Yehoyada, he was also challenging Mashiach ben David. Who's Mashiach ben David going to be Mevatel? Yishmael. Therefore he girded his sword like Yishmaeli to be Merames on the Maila of David HaMelech. So here we have this individual, Yeser HaYisraeli. Yeser HaYisraeli was who? He's the Nitzutz HaToiv, that Arizal said, of Yishmael himself. From him came the antidote to Yishmael. Listen carefully how the Hashgacha has it. There's a man by the name of Yishmael. He's the Chamor Lara. He has a good spark. Yeser HaYishmaeli. He's the antidote to Yishmael. Why? Because since David is Ani V'roichev al Chamar, and David, Mashiach ben David, takes us out of Galos Chamar, the Galos of Yishmael, so it's David, Keneged Yishmael, who's the one who stands up for all time and defends David HaMelech, and allows Malchus Beis David to come into fruition, which ultimately will destroy Yishmael. Yeser HaYishmaeli, who's a nitzutz of none other than Yishmael himself. If you look in the words of Rashi, we know the words of Rashi, Ren Baruch HaKodesh, when Avram Avinu davens, Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha, it could be Avram Avinu was aware that this Yishmael guy is going to bring bad news for Klal Yisrael. Let's for a moment examine Parshas Lech Lecha and Vayeira and the surrounding episodes of the tefillah of Abraham for Yishmael. In Parshas Lech Lecha, Abraham is busy rescuing Lot. In Parshas Vayeira, Avram Avinu is busy rescuing Lot. And according to what we learned, he doesn't really care about Lot, it's all about David HaMelech. So in Parshas Lech Lecha, Avram Avinu is rescuing Lot to get David HaMelech and save him from the 4 kings. In Parshas Vayeira, Avram is davening for the rescue of Lot to save David from Sodom. Remember when Chizkiah HaMelech was about to die, and Chizkiah says, Kach mi kablani mi beis avi abba, afilu cherev chada munachas al tzavar shel adam, al yimna atzmai min arachamim. Who told him that? David. How would David know? Afilu cherev chada munachas al tzavar shel adam, al yimna atzmai min arachamim. Because David was in a nice number of binds. First, he was captured by the 4 kings, and in the nick of time, Avram Avinu rescued him and defeated the 4 kings and saved David. Then he was about to be destroyed in Sodom, and if that shalshelas would have been 1 moment longer, if that Vayisma'amo would have been a second longer, he would have perished with the rest of Sodom. So David HaMelech knows firsthand that afilu cherev chada munachas al tzavar shel adam al yimna atzmai min arachamim. And these 2 episodes of Avram Avinu rescuing Lot, Dehainu David, in between is the tefillah for Yishmael. As if to say that if there's going to be a Yishmael, Avram Avinu says, I better make sure that we have the antidote to Yishmael. And the antidote to Yishmael is David HaMelech. So in Lech Lecha, before the tefillah of Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha, Avram Avinu rescues Lot. In Vayeira, after the tefillah of Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha, Avram Avinu rescues Lot. But even the tefillah of Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha, says Rashi, Yichya b'yirasecha. The word yiras are the oisiyos, says the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas. The word yiras are the oisiyos Yisra. Yisra. In other words, Avram was davening. Yes, there's going to be a Yishmael, I get it. But who's going to be the antidote to Yishmael? The antidote is David. And who's going to defend David and save David and establish the pure lineage of David? Yisra HaYishmaeli, who will get up and say, anyone who doesn't accept this halacha, I'm going to kill them. He girded his sword like a Yishmaeli. So it comes out, Rabbi Sai, we have 2 Galosim. We have Galos Edom and Galos Yishmael. We have 2 Mashiachs. We have Mashiach ben Yosef that takes us out of Galos Edom. We have Mashiach ben David that takes us out of Galos Yishmael. So really? Mashiach ben David takes us out of Galos Yishmael? It's the Balaturim in the beginning of next week's Parsha. What's next week's Parsha? Chai Yisrael. Unbelievable. You're on the ball today. The end of Vayeira, which talks about the families of Yishmael, it says, Al pnei kol achav, nafal, right? And then it says, Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak. Actually, it's the end of Chai Yisara and the beginning of Toldos. The end of Chai Yisara talks about the downfall of Yishmael, and the beginning of Toldos, Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak. Says the Balaturim, listen to this. When Al pnei kol achav nafal, when Yishmael falls, Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak, Az Yitzmach ben David. Az Yitzmach ben David. Clearly the Balaturim is saying that from Galus Yishmael comes Mashiach ben David. So here we have these episodes in Chumash where it seems innocuous. Avram Avinu is saving his nephew Lot, but the truth is Avram Avinu is setting the stage for the ultimate fruition of the Malchus Beis David. He has to save Lot from the clutches of the four kings. He has to save Lot from Sodom, especially in light of the fact that we have this Pera Adam, Yishmael, that Avram was mispalo for. Lu Yishmael Yechia Lefanecha. And of course, the setup to all that is the only reason David HaMelech is mutter is because Kol Kevuda Bas Melech Penima, which was established for all time when the Malachim said, Aye Sarah Ishtecha, and the answer was, Hine Ba'ayal. And therefore David gives credit his whole life that the reason why he's mutter is Esa Inay El Haharim, Aye Sarah Ishtecha, Kais Yeshuais Esa. We should be zoiche to the Bias Mashiach Ben David Heri Amenu. Amen.
Amen. You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.